Hello, everybody. Okay, let's see. I am letting everyone in the room, so if y'all just give me just a second. Okay, it looks like we have everyone entered. Okay, well, hello, everybody. Welcome to SCO's June webinar on why our students chose SCO. We're going to hear from a student panel tonight, so thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tara Pinnell. I'm the Student Services and Admissions Officer here at SCO. I'm one of the team members who answers your admissions questions and participates in the admissions process. So before we get started, I do want to ask that we all use proper Zoom etiquette by keeping microphones muted unless speaking, limiting background noise, and respecting all of the webinar's attendees and facilitators. We will have time for questions towards the end of the webinar, but in the meantime, if you have any questions or concerns that need immediate attention, please use your chat feature to communicate with us. Today, I'll be asking questions of a few of our students here at SCO. This webinar is being recorded and will be free and available to view starting next week on our website. So just to get started, I'm going to introduce everyone to our students here tonight. We have Miss Kylie Brooks. She is in the class of 2029. We have Miss Trinity Travis, who is in the class of 2028, and Alex McDonough, who is in the class of 2027. Trinity, you don't have to have your camera on if you don't want to, but you're welcome to keep it on if you'd like. We are still waiting on Alex. He is in a class actually that ran a little bit late tonight, so he said that he is going to try to join after his class ends. We're just not exactly sure what time that'll be just yet. So for now, it'll be Kylie and Trinity answering questions. So Kylie and Trinity, if you all would like to turn on your microphones, that would be helpful. And I will go ahead and start asking you all some questions. So first of all, where are you from?
Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. I am from Fayetteville, Georgia.
All right. And Kylie, is she able to, let me see. She may not even be able to use her microphone. Let's see. Okay. Kylie, can you use it now? Technical difficulties.
Were you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey, Kylie.
Hi, I'm from San Diego, California.
Okay. Perfect. And Alex McDonough is from Canada, so he's one that's a little further away from everybody else. Also, if anyone has any questions during the presentation, if you would like to drop them in the box, go ahead and you can do that. I know that there are some things that we probably are going to ask the students that will be a little more time sensitive. Like if you have a question about something that was just asked, please feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll be watching that as well. Anyway, so what is your alma mater and what was your major? If you want to go ahead and start, Trinity.
Yes. So I went to the University of Georgia and I majored in biology.
Okay. And Kylie?
I went to Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, and I majored in neuroscience and behavior.
Awesome. Okay. So our next questions are, sorry, my computer is being so slow tonight. How were you exposed to optometry? Whoever wants to start can start.
Yeah, I can start. I grew up going to the optometrist. I've worn glasses since I was younger. So I knew a little bit about it, but it wasn't until I got to college and I worked in an office where I really learned more about it and I was exposed more to it.
So
I didn't grow up wearing glasses or seeing the optometrist. So, really, I was exposed to optometry after doing some research of what to do with my degree while I was in undergrad, and then got a job working in an office where I was exposed more to the field as a whole.
awesome. Okay. So when did you start researching optometry schools then?
I started a little bit of my research my second year of college. And then I really did a deep dive into the specifics of each optometry school that I was interested in during my gap year.
I mostly looked into what classes I needed for prereqs while I was in undergrad in my junior and senior year. And then I started looking into the specifics of which optometry schools to apply to during my gap year as well.
Okay. How did you gain shadowing and professional experience in the field?
For me, since I worked in an optometry office throughout some of my college, I was able to shadow a few of the doctors there and just get different insight from and different perspectives from them.
I was able to get a job as a vision therapist when I moved back home after graduating from undergrad, and I shadowed another one of the doctors that was in the office. I also was able to get a little bit of shadowing experience at a school, optometry school nearby at SCCO. So I was able to shadow students in their clinic.
So we actually just had an Eye on Success program here on campus, and Kylie, you were pretty big help when we were doing that, and I think you can back me up on this. We had a lot of students who seemed like maybe they had some issues finding places to shadow. Do you have any advice on maybe what the best way to get into shadowing might be for some of the students who are looking at places to shadow now in their journey?
Yeah, I think definitely we noticed that some students were having trouble finding um, places to shadow in the area. I really reached out to doctors around because I lived in a bigger city in San Diego. It wasn't very hard for me to find optometrists in the area that were open to having me shadow, but I know in other areas that aren't as densely populated, it might be more difficult. But SCO has a really wide network of alumni. And so reaching out to admissions, they can help you find alumni in your area that might be open to having you shadow them.
Great advice. Okay. Thank you. That was kind of a side tangent, but just in case it helps somebody here. Um, did you participate in any pre-optometry or pre-health clubs?
I personally did not. I really decided on optometry, even though I worked in an optometry office during college. I finalized my decision during my gap year.
I also did not participate in any pre-optometry or pre-health clubs. I went to a pretty small liberal arts school that didn't have a pre-optometry or pre-health program, and I decided pretty late as well what career path I wanted to follow.
Okay. Um, so my next few questions are when did you complete your application relative to the application deadline? So our applications open up in June, actually. So they'll be opening up, I think, on June 26th this year. Maybe it's the 25th, but it's one of those 2 days. And we start receiving people's applications at that point, and then we start doing maybe our very first interview will be in July. I think it'll be like later in July, but we really don't start ramping things up until kind of in September. And then we end in March. So relative to that, when did you submit your application to SCO?
I believe that I submitted my application to SCO either January or February, which I realize is a little late. And that is just because I was deciding whether or not I wanted to do another gap year or to go ahead and apply for school.
I submit my application in November after I took the OAT in October.
Perfect. Okay. When was your OAT prep or test taking, or sorry, what was your OAT prep or test taking experience like?
Kylie, if you want to go ahead and speak on that, I did not end up taking the OAT.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I used OAT Booster. I think I studied for about 3 months, while at the same time I was working part time and taking some prereq classes. So I ended up taking it a little bit later because I had needed to finish some of the prereq classes that were going to show up on the OAT. But taking the test was pretty much just like I practiced with the OAT booster. I think that it prepared me, especially for biology, really well, and ended up doing better in certain sections than what I was testing on in the OAT booster. Um, yeah.
So which test did you end up taking, Trinity? Was it the MCAT or the GRE?
I ended up taking the GRE.
Okay. Um, just for the students listening, we do accept the GRE and the MCAT. However, we do place more emphasis on the OAT, just because it prepares you a little better specifically for optometry school. Like I said, we do accept the MCAT and the GRE under pretty extenuating circumstances. Um, but for the OAT, there are a lot of options on our website that we have that you can use to help you prepare for the OAT if you have any questions. And you can always reach out to us as well and ask if we have any, um, I guess, suggestions on what we see that people use that might be a little helpful. Um, Another thing that we suggest is maybe try making sure that your physics prereqs are taken before the OAT because that one seems to be the one that everyone has the most trouble on is the physics portion. Um, it is very difficult. It's challenging. They don't offer you a formula sheet, so you kind of have to remember everything on your own, which is a little crazy, but um, yeah, we do have some things online on our website that if you feel like you need help finding something, that'll help prepare you for the OAT. We do have those resources available on sco.edu. But for the next question, we have, did you experience any frustrations or roadblocks during the application process?
Yes. So for me personally, during the time of doing my applications, I was working full time and then I was just about to get into working overnights as well in a um, like lab. And so for me, it was just balancing getting my applications done and making sure that I was really showcasing myself as well as time management with my job. And then another roadblock for me was kind of the fees and being able to figure out what time I can take off to go to interviews, and then some of the tuition considerations. And so before applying, I'd spent a lot of time looking into like potential scholarships and the different types of loans. And that was definitely something that I think set me back a little bit during my application process.
For me, one of the roadblocks I ran into was how my letters of rec were being submitted. So I think I would advise getting your letters of rec submitted, and asking for your letters of rec much earlier than when you actually need them to submit your application. Because by the time I had submit all of my materials and my OAT was done, I was still waiting on one letter of rec to be submitted. And so that was kind of panic inducing sometimes when I'm trying to get it in by a certain time.
Definitely can be. Letters of recommendation, I feel like, are one of those things that it takes some people forever to upload because they just kind of forget about it sometimes. So we definitely have to remind some of our people for letters of recommendation. I think actually we have in the class that's going to be entering in a few months in 2026, I think in August. I think there's still a few of them who are waiting on letters of recommendation to be added to their profile. So definitely that one is a big one that I feel like a lot of people kind of hit a roadblock on. Financial aid as well, like Trinity was talking about, figuring out what your monetary value is going to be in your school is a huge thing, especially for financial aid and scholarships and things. So, one thing that I'd like to hammer into everybody is the earlier that you apply in the process, the better your chances are of getting a scholarship. We start to kind of run out towards December. And then by like February, March, we are, I mean, like scraping the bottom of the barrel for scholarships. So the earlier you apply, definitely the better as far as financial aid and scholarships go. So just keep that in mind. Um, the next question is, what was the SCO interview experience like for you?
For me, it was very welcoming, very supportive. Going into all of my interviews, I was pretty nervous. And so, a big thing that stood out to me about SEO was how the interviewers made me feel very comfortable and just encouraged me to just be myself. And I feel like throughout the interview process, it felt like very conversational rather than intimidating and just feeling like I'm being drilled with questions. And so that was something I really appreciated about the interview at SCO.
I interviewed virtually, so I had a little bit different of an experience than people that interview in person. But even still, the interview experience was again really conversational. Like maybe I was asked 2 to 3 questions, but the majority were kind of like me leading the conversation and just chit chatting about different things that I wanted to bring up to make sure that I highlighted in my experience, whether it be like as a student athlete or other volunteer experience that I had done that I wanted to make sure that I got to in my interview. I kind of directed the conversation myself.
Right. Okay. Next question is, what was it about SCO that made the greatest impact on you personally?
I will add that I also interviewed virtually. So the greatest impact that SEO made on me was when I actually had the opportunity to visit in person and meet all the faculty and staff and the students face to face. And similarly to how I felt during my interview at SEO, everybody was really welcoming and genuine. And then it just seemed like all the professors were really wanting their students to succeed. Um, and then I believe that I came in when it was a midterm week, but even then, like everybody just seemed like very collaborative um, and really passionate about optometry. And so that was definitely something that had a big impact on me deciding to come to STO.
I think that's going to be a common answer is just how friendly and welcoming people at SCO are. When I came for my tour, my tour guide was showing me around, and everybody saying hi to her in the clinic and saying hi to me. And she brings me over to a student that she knows also went to school in the Northeast. And, just so I'd have something in common with another student, we could chit chat about that, what it's like, the different kinds of weather here. So I think just everybody being so welcoming really made SCO stand out.
So, to give a little context for interviews here at SCO, we used to do more virtual interviews, but we have kind of limited them down to our Canadian students for now. Um, so, when Trinity and Kylie were interviewing, obviously they had they lived further away than, well, Trinity, you're from Georgia, but I can't remember what happened with your interview. But Kylie, I know you're from California, so we definitely um that was like a mileage thing. I think it used to be like a certain amount of miles away from SCO that we would do virtuals for. What was yours? Why was yours virtual, Trinity?
I was in Minnesota at the time working at Mayo Clinic, and so I wasn't able to fully like get off work that day, and so you guys were able to make some accommodations for me so that I could do my interview virtually.
That's right. Okay. We like to accommodate when we can, for sure. We do understand that a lot of people have things going on in life, so it's not as easy. But we really, really try to get people in for in-person interviews because we feel like a lot of your decision kind of is based on how you vibe with the school. And you can't tell how well you'll vibe in a school if you aren't physically there. Well, sometimes I do feel like a lot of our staff here is really good about being very friendly and warm. Um, but we do like you to see like the area where you'll live and things like that. So for an actual interview day, um, the day is a pretty long one, but we do counseling sessions, we do interviews, we do a tour of Memphis, a bus tour. We give you lunch and we go over like a financial aid presentation during our lunch. And you also get a campus tour, so you can see not just our campus, but you can see Memphis as well. And it's really nice to be able to get kind of a better taste of what life in Memphis and at SCO would be like. So, just for a little context for those who would have a different experience than Kylie and Trinity, and also Alex would have done his virtually as well. So that I guess none of you would have an in-person interview to share about, but I'm very, very happy to hear that SEO translated well with friendliness and warmth towards all of you when you were interviewing. Okay, so then our next question is if you were able to visit the campus prior to applying or enrolling, what was the experience like for you?
So for me, I didn't end up visiting the campus until after I applied and after I had gotten in. But that is where I felt like the warmth and the collaborative community and the supportive environment. Um, and I would definitely recommend if you are able to, go to SEO first and see it. I think that that weighed a big part in why I chose to come to SEO.
Really the same thing as Trinity. I think we had really similar experiences. I also was able to visit campus after I had applied and gotten in, but before making my decision. And definitely seeing it in person helped make my decision easier. I think it would have been much easier had I come on like an in-person interview day and seen all of like the events that we do. Now being an ambassador and seeing how interview day runs for students or prospective students, I would definitely recommend doing it in person.
Okay. If you were on the fence, what ultimately made you choose SCO?
I definitely already highlighted like being in that environment, but something that I would also like to add is when I did my tour with the Eye Center, and they spoke about just being all the opportunities you have being in Memphis. We have a very diverse patient population, and so when you're in clinic, you're exposed to a lot of different eye diseases and systemic diseases. And I believe that this was going to be something that would make me more confident and more well rounded when I start practicing. And so, for me personally, I've always wanted to serve in like a diverse community, and have my own practice in a underserved or underrepresented community. And so, I think that being at the Eye Center and actually seeing it played a big role for me.
For me, I was really torn between SCO and SCCO, both really good schools, and I kind of came down to the wire in making my decision. And what really kind of pushed me over the edge was a scholarship and an increase in the scholarship that I was offered, and the cost of living in Memphis, in addition to SCO being such a good program, is what helped me make my decision.
All great answers. Love to hear it. What are the biggest differences between your undergraduate and your professional studies?
A big difference for me was how in depth we go with material. I know that a lot of people say that professional studies is a lot harder. And so I came in thinking that, like, concept wise, I might have a harder time. But for me, I think it was a lot of like time management because I wasn't used to taking that amount of course load, as well as taking practicals on top of that. Um, but I will say, like, being in school for even just a month, I was able to really get my time management down.
I think for me, the biggest difference would be the volume of information that we were learning in a period of time, and learning to reinforce the information that I learned week one when your exam is on 5 weeks of information, and making sure that as I'm learning new things, I'm still going back and studying the things that we learned at the beginning of the term.
I know it had to be a huge juxtaposition, so kudos to you guys for doing that. How was your transition into optometry school?
I had a good transition into optometry school. I think uh, I did like a lot of research on like Reddit and things about optometry school like being harder, and so I came in with the mindset of like, okay, I have to do X, Y, Z, and I have to study more. But I really do think like with the professors being there and then how collaborative the environment is, I didn't really have too much of an issue transitioning into optometry school. I will say I also took, when I was in undergraduate, I did take an overload of courses for a few semesters. And so I do think that that prepared me for having more courses when I started my first year.
I'm gonna take this question and run with it as in like physically like moving. Um, I think for me moving early and getting adjusted to Memphis helped in the adjustment to optometry school. So I moved like a month and a half before school started, and getting settled in my bearings in Memphis and knowing where I was at helped me not have to adjust to two new things in like where I was living, and also a new strenuous like grad program. Yeah.
And I just kind of want to go off what Kylie said. I actually did the opposite and moved to Memphis, I believe like 2 or 3 days before orientation. And something that I wish I had done was move in at least like 2 to 3 weeks earlier. We just had like a lot of student get-togethers, and I also wish that I would have been able to explore Memphis a little bit more prior to starting my courses. So I would recommend, if you could, I think it would have been an easier transition for me if I had moved to Memphis a little earlier.
So far, does the experience match, exceed, or fall short of your expectations?
I believe that like with when I went onto the SCO campus, it was already kind of exceeding my expectations. But now, since starting clinic recently, I I will say SEO has like far exceeded my expectations of what I thought it was going to be like.
In terms of difficulty, I think that optometry school matches exactly how hard I thought it was going to be. I don't feel shocked by how difficult it's been, and it's definitely not easier than I thought it would be. But at SCO as a school has definitely exceeded my expectations, and seeing how many opportunities there are for prospective students, and just being there as a student has definitely exceeded my expectations.
Always wonderful to hear. Um, I feel like there's so much to do around here that it's really hard to kind of show off how much there is to do in Memphis before you get here. But like once you're here, I mean, you guys are doing things literally every week, every weekend, all the time. I feel like there's constantly something going on with our students, which is really interesting and fun to me because I love hearing about it. We have a lot of our ambassadors who like to come up on our floor and get coffee, and they'll tell us about their weekend escapades. And I enjoy hearing about it. It's so fun for me to be able to listen to what all you guys get into. When you're not even just in SCO, but out doing fun things with each other. So the next question is, what do you enjoy most about your class, lab, or clinical activities this semester?
So this semester, I just started clinic. And I think that what I've enjoyed most is being able to actually apply what I've learned in my didactic courses. Because I think it's one thing to like see it in pictures and hear about it, but then to actually get a patient and be able to say, like, oh, this is what it could possibly look like, or the different ways that it presents itself, has just been something that I've really enjoyed over the past month of being in clinic.
I am currently on our summer break, but in my past first year, theory lab has been my favorite. It feels like I'm learning all the things of how to be an optometrist and how to do all the things in an eye exam. And that's been my favorite part, is getting to learn the refraction and play with all of the things that you'll see in an exam lane.
I know that one's kind of a hard question to answer too, because you guys are in like a mini term right now. So the semester is a little bit different. Um, but anyway, what are you most looking forward to later in the program?
I'm looking forward to the externships that we have, just because I feel like it'll give me the opportunity to take the things that I've learned in the classroom as well as in the clinic and apply it to a variety of like real world settings. And I'm excited to just work with different patient populations.
I'm looking forward to working in the clinic and getting started seeing patients and applying what I've learned so far.
Okay. And how much time do you typically dedicate to studying?
I know that a few students kind of do this type of studying as well, but for me, I have a thing where it's like 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on. And so 2 weeks before midterms, I'll be studying, I would say pretty much every day, at least an hour, just really honing in on some of the things that I've learned during class. And then with the 2 weeks off, I still am looking over the material, but I wouldn't say that I am like actively studying.
It depends how much time I spend studying on how close we are to a midterm or finals week. So typically, I would say in kind of like those off weeks, I'm studying anywhere from like 1 to 3 hours, maybe four. And then like the week of or before a midterm week, it's closer to like 4 to 5 a day. And then I usually take 1 day off, 1 or 2 days off of studying a week.
There's so many different ways to study. I feel like you kind of just have to figure out what works best for you. So how much time, or no, sorry, are you involved in any extracurricular activities at SCO?
Yes, I am involved in the National Optometric Student Association, which just kind of promotes diversity in the optometric field. And then I am also the Beta Sigma Kappa treasurer. And so that's our honor society that we have at SEO. And then I am a student ambassador. So I just enjoy like giving prospective students tours and answering any questions that they have. And then I am a member in Ocular Disease Club, where we get to different doctors will come in and kind of talk about the different cases that they've had, and we get to learn more about that. And then I am also the SECO student representative. And so I don't know if you guys know about that, but that's a conference that's typically held in Georgia.
I am also a student ambassador and really enjoy giving tours as well to prospective students. And I am a student fellow of the Academy, which is just that I went to the Academy conference last year in Boston and got a certain amount of CE credits. Um, I also am involved in the Vision Therapy Club, which is fun. And we're trying to start a line dancing club. So I've been to all our line dancing meetings last semester, and that is very fun.
I did not know that there was a line dancing underground community at SCO. That is amazing. We do have somewhere between 30 and 40 clubs and organizations that are active currently. And we have intramural sports as well. So I know a lot of our students like to play pickleball. That seems to be like the up and coming thing that everyone's playing pickleball. There's volleyball, soccer. I think there's basketball. I'm not sure about like I don't think we have like baseball teams or anything, but we do have lots of extracurriculars and intramural sports. And I guess line dancing could be considered a sport. But we have so many things that you can get involved in here at SEO. There's also some organizations that even go like out and do missions trips to South America, Costa Rica, um, lots of places that they go do mission trips, which is really cool every year. I just saw a bunch of our students' pictures from their trip this year, and they all got really tan, and I was very jealous. Um, but we do have lots of things that you can get involved in here. There's also a club SPOSH that will help you with just about anything that you need. If you need someone to cat sit or dog sit, they'll get somebody to help you do that. If you need help when you move here, they'll help you. They're really good for just about anything and everything. So there's so many things that you can get into. It's not just optometry fields, it's everything. Um, but yeah, I'm glad to hear that both of you are members of a bunch of our clubs. So, the next question that I have is how do you manage your free time and how do you like to spend it?
Yeah. So outside of class, I like going on walks. I enjoy working out. Um, there is a church that they do like volleyball on Sunday, and so I like participating in that, and it allows me to meet people outside of the school. And then a big thing about me is I am a foodie, and Memphis has one of the best food scenes, and so a lot of my weekends are like spent trying a different type of food or going to a different cafe and studying.
I really like hanging out. So I like hosting movie nights and game nights in my apartment. And it's really nice because all of my friends live on Mud Island, so they can just like walk or quick drive over. And we like to hang out. We'll also do group study sessions if it's a weekend before like a midterm or something like that.
Trinity, I had no idea you were a foodie as well. I am such a foodie. So if you want to come by my office at any point and compare notes, I can give you some spots and you can give me some spots, and I'd be more than happy to try some new places. Because I feel like even though I've been a local here my whole life, there are just spots that pop up that you never know until someone tells you about, and then you're all excited because you have a new favorite, and it's great. But anyway, back to the point. So how would you describe your experience living in Memphis so far?
I've really enjoyed living in Memphis. I think that the city itself just has a lot of like unique culture. Again, the amazing food, and then there's also a really good live music scene. And so I feel like there's always something going on, whether it be like the weekend farmers market or a festival or a community event, and that's something I've really enjoyed about Memphis. And then I'll also say I am from Georgia, but the Southern hospitality here is just different. It's like everybody I come into contact with is just so nice. And it just is a really like loving atmosphere.
I really enjoy my time living in Memphis so far. When I first moved here, to speak on Trinity's point of everybody just being so nice, I was like furnishing my apartment through Facebook Marketplace, and everybody that I met was so nice, and they were giving me all of their recommendations of places to go eat and hang out. I also think there are things to do around Memphis, even if it's not in Memphis, just all the time. Last weekend, did a day trip over to Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas. And next month, we're going to see a concert in St. Louis. So there's always just things around to do in Memphis and outside of Memphis within a certain driving distance.
I'm very glad to hear that everybody has been nice to you guys. That's been my experience too, living here. Everyone is super kind. So I guess my last big question for you all, is there anything that has surprised you about optometry school?
For me, what has surprised me most is like all of us, like everybody in my class, just coming together from very different backgrounds, very different experiences, and coming together for a common goal. Um, I would say we all have like different interests and different strengths, but we have that common goal of wanting to be an optometrist and help our patients. And so I think that that plays a role into why SEO feels like such a strong community. Um, I was kind of worried about going into professional school and it being a very competitive atmosphere. And so being at SEO, I feel like even when it's times of stress, like during midterm weeks, there's so much encouragement going on between all the students, and there's just a lot of support overall.
I think what surprised me most about optometry school was how long it took me to nail down my and perfect my study method. Um, that it something wasn't working, that I just needed to scrap it and try something new for the next round of exams, instead of trying and continuing something that wasn't working. So I think that surprised me, about how much my study method has changed over the past year.
Okay, well, I do have one final question for you guys, but in the meantime, if there's anybody in the chat who would like to ask questions of Trinity and Kylie, you can go ahead and type your questions now. And when they get done answering my final question, then we'll go through the questions in the chat. If you don't have anything, that's totally fine. But I just want to give everybody the opportunity to write anything that they have, any burning questions in the chat, just in case. So my final question is, overall, do you have any advice, any experience, any tips, anything about SCO that you feel like we haven't touched as much on that you would like to add about maybe why you chose SCO?
Um, I don't know if it's like an add-on to why I chose SEO, but it would be some advice that I would have just going into optometry school in general. I feel like it's very easy to compare yourself to others when you're in a school environment. And I think that that's something that I've had to work on at my time at SEO. Um, really like focusing on just learning and improving, rather than trying to do everything perfectly or comparing myself to the people around me. Um, Another piece of advice is, building strong relationships with incoming students. So it's something that I touched on earlier about like wishing that I did move here a little earlier, to build like strong relationships. But I do think during my time here, I've had the opportunity to build strong relationships. But these are all going to be your colleagues one day. And so I think it's pretty important to, understand that all the students are here for the same cause. And like I said, everybody wants to help. SEO in general is just very collaborative. Um, and then I think a last piece of advice that I would have, is being able to maintain balance. So yes, optometry school does seem pretty demanding. It does take up some time, but at the same time, being able to hear like what me and Kylie do on our free time and outside of school, like there is a lot of time that you do have for yourself. And so using that time wisely to do the things you love and not getting so wrapped up in the academics of everything.
I agree. I think just everybody in optometry school here at SCO is not competitive with each other, and everybody's just working together for that one common goal. And also it's hard to not get down on yourself when you don't perform as well as you wanted to or expected yourself to do. So something really important for me before coming to optometry school was like untangling my self-worth with my grades and how well I perform academically, because everybody bombs an exam, and you have to know that that's not a reflection on yourself as a person. And you just move on and study harder for the next one, or change how you study. And so that would be my biggest advice is, maintaining, like Trinity said, the things that keep you sane, your hobbies, and when you have free time, actually doing those hobbies to help you keep the balance, and knowing that your academic performance isn't your life. Um, and yeah.
Great advice. So we did have a couple of questions. What do you think was the most important factor to your resume or experiences that schools wanted to see?
I think a factor that might have played a role in my application was me working as a clinical lab scientist at Mayo Clinic. But I think just something on your application that would make you stand out. A lot of students that are coming into optometry school, have great academics or have a great OAT. And so just being able to have something that kind of sets you apart from other students might be helpful to have on an application.
Something that I think was helpful to my application was volunteer experience. I had some relevant volunteer experience working with the Braille Institute, so something kind of relative to the field of optometry. And I think that's one of SCO's core values is service. So I think that was something that stood out on my resume. That's a good question, though.
From an admissions advisor perspective, um, so we are going to have a webinar next week about how to ace the admissions interview. So that'll probably be a little more helpful for those type of questions when you get there, if you would like to tune in for that one as well. But for now, from my perspective, so a few things that we really like to see on your application as far as your experiences go, is we do like to see volunteer work. We like to see extracurriculars. We like to see when you're involved in things outside of school. And there's several reasons why we like to see things that you're involved with outside of school. Um, First of all, volunteer, like Kylie was saying, is service hours are one of our course here at SCO. We really put a lot of emphasis on service because we have so many people in our community who um, are in need of help. We have a lot of people within our community who maybe have never been to an optometrist in their life and they're 70 years old and it's their first time ever having their eyes checked because they either didn't have health insurance or didn't know that it was even a thing that you could do, or didn't have the money to do it or couldn't afford glasses. We have a lot of underprivileged and underserved communities around here in our own backyard. And so we put a really heavy emphasis on service because of that. So we do like to see a lot of volunteer hours. We like to see, like I said, extracurriculars and things. And the other reason for that is that we can tell when you do a good job of juggling your time that way. So if you, obviously, if you can do, let's say 32 hours of volunteer service, or if you have a if you're on a team, an extracurricular team or anything like that, it shows us that you can balance your time studying along with your personal time, which is a really big thing that you'll need in optometry school. So that is something that we like to look at when looking at your applications. But any type of relevant experience, even if it isn't relevant, if you have anything that you've done, a server position or anything that you've done, we want to know about it. It kind of helps to make you who you are as a person, and it's good for us to be able to have a lot of context going into meeting you in person when you come for your interview, to know who you are and what you like and what your background is. And um, it really helps us to get to know you a little better. And that's kind of the heart and soul of SCO, is we want to get to know our students as people, not just as students. Um, and then even if it seems like it's not super relevant, like I said, serving positions are still great because as a doctor, you're going to have to be personable to your patients. It's very similar to serving a person at a restaurant or at a retail store. So you need to have your personable skills that we can see on your resume. So anything that you think you can put on a resume to get you a job is what we want you to put on your application when you apply to optometry school. So I digress. The other half of that question was also, as someone who's considering either med school or optometry school, what made you commit to optometry? Sorry, y'all, it's been a long night.
For me, at one point, I was considering med school. I think the factor that helped me decide between the two was my shadowing experiences. Um, with optometry and working in the office, I really just knew that I liked having a one-on-one patient interaction, and then also having a blend of like primary care and specialty care because I want to work in ocular disease. Um, but I think that it's kind of just like a person or a case by case basis. But I will say something that helped me a lot with that decision was my shadowing.
I think the work life balance was something that interested me about optometry. I think I knew deep down that I wasn't cut out for working overnight shifts. And so I just knew that being a medical doctor was probably not the path for me.
We definitely get to hear that a lot, where the work-life balance is a really big positive for students going into optometry. So we did have another question. Hi, just curious, what are the biggest factors when one should consider, what are the biggest factors one should consider when picking an optometry school? Also, in terms of the content in optometry school versus undergrad, was one more volume heavy and or conceptually difficult than the other? Thank you.
Okay, so the biggest factors that I looked into were finances. So, where, like, looking into cost of living, tuition at different schools. And then another factor for me was looking at the board scores. And then in terms of content in optometry school, that first semester or like kind of that first year that you're in optometry school, you're taking classes that may be similar to some of the prerequisites you took, like anatomy, biochemistry. And so I felt like conceptually they're about the same, but I do think that the volume was heavier. When you get into your second year courses, I will say to me, it did seem a little more conceptually difficult, but I was really enjoying what we were learning because now we're talking more about the eye. And so I think that, you know, allowed me to be intrigued in class and like enjoy studying outside of class.
I think for the most important factors that I considered when looking at schools was board pass rates. I wanted to make sure that after 4 years and a certain amount of debt, was going to be able to be licensed and practice. So that was my number one. And then number two was cost of living and cost of attendance. Um, and the other is community and making sure that I was spending 4 years surrounded by a good supportive community. Like Trinity said, I think for content undergrad versus optometry school, it's definitely more volume heavy. In optometry school, I would say that it also is different. Things that we learned in anatomy, I think we went more in depth in certain places than I did in my undergrad anatomy course, and then didn't touch on other things that I learned in undergrad anatomy that we yeah, in optometry school, we didn't touch on as much. So I'd just say it's different, content wise.
Okay, I don't think we had any more questions. So, Kylie and Trinity, thank you both. I hate that Alex wasn't able to join us, but he did, like I said, he did tell me beforehand that he probably wouldn't get to. Um, I'm gonna give a second because it looks like someone might be typing, but for now, okay, they were just saying thank you. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our webinar. I know we've covered a lot of information, and I hope that it's been of assistance to you on your optometric journeys. We look forward to seeing you in July for our next webinar covering how to master the admissions interview. If you'd like to go ahead and register for that webinar, the link is live and available. Um, on our website right now. So if you haven't done so already, I invite you to request more information by signing up on our inquiry form. You'll receive a personal advisor and a brochure with information relevant to your goals and experiences. Thank you to Kylie and Trinity again for sharing your time and insight. And we hope to see you all next month and hope you have a wonderful evening.